the history, at least big picture overview of Forged in the Barrens. And so this is where we pass the talking stick and the lore book and whatever else off to our friendly lore master, Goliath the Dwarf.
My pleasure. All right. So to get started on what is the Barrens, this is what I like to call a tour guide type of Hearthstone expansion, where some of them will focus on kind of a small area and do something in depth, or their main thing will be to focus on feature characters from a certain race. Like Rastakhan's Rumble was basically, here's a bunch of trolls, and they're all fighting in a small arena. Some will be kind of features on like a specific dungeon or like a certain instance with a lot of bosses from Warcraft. But this is the sort of thing that I call it tour guide, because we have just a wide smattering of different things across a large area. And it's really great because we can have this class is representing this particular aspect of the flavor, and this is representing this aspect of the flavor. So we have a lot of different type of things to talk about here. But to get started, as you'll see, we have a map of the Barrens right here. And to just demonstrate exactly what the Barrens are, you'll notice that it's surrounded by a couple areas. One of them is called Mulgore. That is where the Tauren live. That's kind of the homeland, where they have their capital city of Thunderbuff. And another one off to the side is Durotar. That is where the Orcs mainly live, in the capital city of the Horde called Orgrimmar. And there's also a couple islands right below Durotar. Those are called the Echo Isles, and that is where the Darkspear Trolls live. So the reason the Barrens is so important, it's not really very much on its own. It's barren, it's with most areas in WoW that are deserts or barren, it has a backstory of once this was a lush land, but then a lot of bad stuff happened, and now nothing will grow here, etc., etc. But we don't have very many details on that one compared to some of the other like deserts and stuff. But this basically, it's kind of like a savanna prairie style of thing. And really the reason that it's important is because it's a connection area. It's an area where you have trade between the different races, communications between the allies. And much like in real history, where certain relatively insignificant pieces of land have been fought over again and again in history because they connect other more important areas. So that's the key to the Barrens here, is that it's an area where you can move a lot of stuff through, like how we have the special caravan cards. That's an example here. There's lots of caravans that travel through the Barrens on various different businesses. So that's one of the special card types for you right there, fully explained.
Interesting. Hey, there you go. Okay.
There's an achievement for those too.
Oh. See? The more you know, right?
Yeah, start your turn with a caravan in play.
So that Silverhand caravan, they're carrying bricks of... Never mind. Keep going. So they're making trade. Hey. Anyway.
Well, not all of them are trading. Like for the dwarven one for the hunters, prospectors. This is something that's not really featured very much in the core set. Maybe I'll touch on it in the mini set. I don't know, but there's like some the dwarves tend to like to do a lot of archaeology, looking for ancient Titan ruins, and there's some in the Barrens, and so that's kind of what that one's going for. Pretty much all the paladin cards are connected to an area we'll talk about near the end of the podcast. But if you notice, a couple areas are marked out on the map. There's one that's called Northwatch. There's a place called the Crossroads. There's a place called Razorfen. And those are all key areas that are particularly on the map that we'll be diving a little bit more into overall. But now I think it's time for us to go into the first of the major Horde races here, the Darkspear Trolls, that are relevant to the Barrens area.
All right. So yeah, we've got a couple of cards that represent these. We see it in like the Barrens Trader. We see it in Darkspear Berserker. where, and again, this is where I love, like, I didn't even realize this until we started researching for the lore episode. I'm sitting here looking at the Darkspear Berserker, and then I pull up the artwork for the Darkspear Trolls, and like, dude, they match. Like, what? The art team is so great. Like, I love seeing these when there's like card art that matches the WoW art. And if you had never played, like, you just wouldn't know this. And it's these like fine details that are just super cool. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Something that I really appreciate. It's like, I love the art in Hearthstone. I love the art style in WoW. I love collecting all of the art books. As soon as a new one comes out for Hearthstone, I either get it right away or it instantly goes on wish list for Christmas or birthday or whenever I have an opportunity for someone to give me things. But yeah, I love the art, and it does go really well, once again, for these Darkspear Trolls, just like it does for a lot of things. So the Darkspear are a particular tribe of troll. There are so many different ones, and as I mentioned, Rastakan's Rumble was kind of an expansion where a lot of different ones were featured. They originally were part of one massive troll empire that was the dominant power, like many thousands of years ago on Azeroth. But they kind of split up into their own separate troll kingdoms. Some of them did well. Most of them pretty much dwindled over the years. And so a lot of trolls kind of have an obsession with reclaiming our past power and glory. And so most trolls are hostile to pretty much all non-trolls. You have like the Amani, the Gurubashi, the Zandalari, the Drakari. Most of them end with I. The Darkspear are a much smaller tribe that is more amiable with other races. They are actually members of the Horde, while other trolls would tend to not want to have anything to do with the Horde for the most part, because, you know, they kind of have a racial superiority thing a lot of the time. But the Darkspear are pretty chill as far as trolls go. They're initially from a small island where they, believe it or not, were completely under threat by Murlocs. I'm not entirely certain how. Although the Murlocs were commanded by a Naga Sea Witch, so I guess that empowered them or something. But yeah, so they were doing really bad. And then the Horde came along and helped to free them. And the guy who was leading them was named Senjin. And he's like, yeah, we should totally team up here. We'll join your Horde. And they eventually moved to that area I mentioned called the Echo Isles. Now, Senjin died, but then we move on to his son who succeeded him, who is a legendary set, Vol'jin. Well, technically, this is his second round of being a legendary, because he was a legendary in Goblins and Gnomes. I get back before they decided to try to make every legendary fit in with the thematics, because he doesn't really have anything to do with Goblins and Gnomes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this one they focus on him as a Shadow Hunter. Now, Vol'jin has a long story like a lot of major characters, and we can't go into it now because we'll be here forever, and we're trying to keep these episodes on a reasonable level of time. But this card focuses on his role as a Shadow Hunter. So we'll just talk a little bit about that. A Shadow Hunter is a master of voodoo, which is basically like special troll magic connected to the Loa. Again, Rastakan's Rumble. Pretty much we'll reference anything with that set when we're talking about trolls. Remember all the Loa cards. Yep, like Shivala, like Rawl, like Gonk, Akali, just all of those powerful spirits that the trolls worship and have close bonds to, and can give them a lot of power. A Shadow Hunter is like one of the most powerful levels that a troll can reach. Back in the ancient troll empires, they used to basically be kind of the rulers. Now they're more like kind of the heroic mythic level champions of the trolls. They can bless, they can curse, they be, you know, light and shadow, whatever they think is necessary to protect their people and advance the well-being of their tribe. And so Vol'jin here is a powerful Shadow Hunter. He has a very strong connection with his Loa, which actually is Bwan Samdi, if you remember Bwan Samdi card. Yeah. So yeah, he has a strong connection with the Loa, and so he's a powerful shadow hunter, and that is what this card is representing, that aspect of him.
Ah, that's cool. That's super cool. I'm gonna have to pull up the old Rasticon's Rumble cards now too and take a look at those.
Yeah. So then, moving on from the trolls, we're going to talk about the orcs. Well, we have a couple different categories of orcs to talk about. First, we're going to talk about the orcs of the Horde. So as I said, Durotar is one of the lands that borders on the Barrens. That's where the capital city of the whole Horde is, and the capital city of the orc race in particular, which is Orgrimmar. And the orcs are rather militaristic a lot of the time, because they come from a world which is very savage. Their whole instinct, their whole culture is around fight to survive. They have some of them can be more noble about it and filled. Some of them can be a bit more sinister and backstabbing, but they overall have a culture that is very much about fighting, because that's just the world that their race originated in.
Yeah.
Which is why the Horde tends to be the ones to instigate a lot of conflicts between the factions with the Alliance, because you're more likely to get some bad apple leaders from a culture like that than from a more peaceful one. But at any rate, so we have a lot of cards in the Baron set, and we're not going to show them all here, but we have our Morshan Elite and our War Song here, and just two examples of some of the strong military forces that originate from Orgrimmar, and they're basically out here in the Barrens to, you might say, protect the Horde's interests, make sure that some caravans are protected, make sure that any threats from the Barrens, whether it be the Alliance in the Barrens, or whether it's some of the native creatures like the Quilboar or any other things that we'll talk about in a little bit, you want to stop them out in the Barrens before they make their way to your home city. So there's a lot of Horde military forces of various sorts that are out here in the Barrens as well, that a lot of these cards represent.
Nice.
And then we move on to another legendary, who is a very legendary orc. Varrock Sarfang, Overlord Sarfang, as he's titled in this. And again, a character with quite the story of his own that would take forever for us to tell. But maybe someday we'll have a Loремasters episode on it.
Right.
But yeah,
I saw this pop up, and I was like, "Sweet, 10-hour episode! Like we can spend 2 hours on Vol'jin and another 2 hours on Saurfang, and then but anyways, yeah.
Right. If anyone wants a bit more detail, you can always check out my lore guides, where I write a little bit more about this than I have time to talk about here. But basically, Sarfang he's like as much of a veteran orc warrior as you can get. He was part of the original Horde when it was founded, even before they came to Azeroth. He has fought in campaign after campaign. He actually was very respected by both the Horde and Alliance, to the extent that when they had to lead an attack against Cthulhu, the old god, they needed to have this massive army joining the factions called the Might of Kalimdor, and they chose Sarfang to lead it because he was actually respected by both the Alliance and the Horde. And they're like, okay, this is like the one guy that everybody here can trust.
That's rad.
Yeah, and he had a son who got killed by the Lich King and became a Death Knight, who you encounter in the Frozen Throne solo adventure, Deathbringer Sarfang. That's his son, and poor Varrock was very broken up about all that. Having to fight his undead son.
Well, I need to replay that now. Like knowing this, like okay,
yeah,
it's been years. All right, that's cool.
That sounds cool.
I love that Arcanite Reaper.
Yes, he is one of the more prominent. It's sort of like the Arcanite Reaper is just a type of axe. It's not a specific, like a legendary weapon variety. But Sarfang is what you might call a celebrity endorsement of the Arcanite Reaper brand. So yeah, he in fact he was famous for his cleaving ability in Warcraft. If you had like PvP with players in the Alliance who wanted to invade the Horde, and if they had to fight him, he was famous for being able to just do massive sweeps and just like taking out so many people with axe blows at once. And that's kind of reflected in his card abilities here. How he just does damage to all other minions.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he
that's good flavor.
He kind of served as sort of the representative of the orcs at various times in Horde politics if someone like Thrall wasn't available. And then he eventually sacrificed his life in a duel against Sylvanas Windrunner when she was war chief and caused a lot of problems for the Horde. But that's a whole other story. But yes, that's Sarfang. He's a really guy. A lot of respect for him on that. But moving on from him, we have another notable to talk about, but he's notable for entirely different reasons. Not because he's wicked, but because he is of really minor importance, but large meme importance.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah. Mancrick here. So Mancrick is a very minor character, just a quest giver in the Barrens, but he became rather notable in the early days of the game, because in the early days of World of Warcraft, there weren't any quest markers. And since the quest is to find Mancrick's dead wife, the Barrens was a massive zone. They actually had to cut it in half. So if you play the game today and you don't play the classic mode, it's northern and southern Barrens. But back then it was just the most massive zone in the game, I think.
Oh, wow.
And so you have players who are running around looking for one dead body, like in tall grass, could be anywhere in this zone.
Wait, sorry, can I interrupt you real quick? What was the quest? So like when you run into Mancrick, like what is his...
Find his wife.
So that's what he would say. Hey, my wife is missing. Can you help me find my wife?
Yeah. Okay. They were separated when they were attacked by Quilboar, and he has no clue where she is. And so he tasks you with finding her. And so everyone was just always be chatting in the community chats. Like, does anyone know where Mancrick's wife is? I can't find her. And it became rather infamous. Mancrick's wife kind of basically became a term to mean something that you just can't find in the game, or something along those lines.
Thank goodness for Questy, the app that shows you where all those things.
Yeah, and this is another one where the flavor of the mechanics matches so well, because once you find his wife, he realizes that she was killed by the Quilboar, and he is just filled with rage and obsessed with killing Quilboar for that day on. So that's why when you draw the card of his wife, he summons up and he's just in a rage and he charges at your opponents, and he's saying things like, "Give me their tusks," because he wants you to kill all the Quilboar inventions for them.
So gangster.
Yeah.
I love it when he attacks. He goes, "Ogra!" Or when you draw the card. When you draw the card. The flavor is so good.
Oh yeah, yeah. That it's one of my favorites flavor wise. And like I said, he's not a significant character in the grand scheme of the lore, but he's like an amazing meme in the community, and I'm so happy to see him given homage in this set, because that's fun.
Yeah, that's really cool to see. Like Leroy Jenkins, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Basically a meme.
Well, yeah, Leroy Jenkins is actually a meme that originated from a YouTube video. Yeah. Later on, they decided to make a character based on the game or a character. But yeah. So now we move on to something of even less notable, but very, very dependable, very important for all of your backbreaking labor needs. Nate, I know that you've talked about this guy in the past. Did you talk about your experience with the peon?
Time to work. Zog. So yeah, the peon dates back to like Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, like this is your basic ground unit that does all of the building. They do all of the harvesting. So like, hey, you need to chop down trees. These dudes chop down the trees. They get the gold out of the mine. They build the buildings. Your building catches on fire. They fix it. And it's great because like they've been around forever. When you click on them, they say funny things. And throughout the games, like, you know, the voice lines are so funny and so cute, and it's just like that, you know, zug zug. And the classic line, like it's been in Hearthstone since day one. Like if you've got like say turn 1 and you've got no 1-drops, like you hear it, you go, job's done, you know. Like okay.
Yep.
And
so the peon has actually been in Hearthstone from the very start, right? It's just now coming out as a card though.
I love it.
At work, whenever I get an email where someone asks me if there's something particular has been completed or not, I honestly respond with "job's done" every time. Just, job's done.
They call you up and say something you doing.
Not yet. Only one person has caught on. It just happened the other day, a week ago. A guy's like, every time you respond with "job's done," I think of Warcraft. It's been years. Finally, one person.
Nice. Then they get invited to this secret VIP club,
right?
Yeah,
for figuring it out. But yeah, so the peon is your basic laborer who's not very bright, kind of the more brawn than brain type of character. Up there, your lumberjack, your construction worker, your farmer. Really. They deserve a lot of credit for the amazing variety of physical labor they're able to do. I wouldn't be able to do pretty much any of that. Hooray for the blue collar orc worker! but yeah, so that's the peon. And then we have our next section here where we're getting into another special card type for this set, the watch post. Because these also have a specific reason why they're there. I think the cards are pretty cool on their own with the way that they mess with your opponent. But they actually have a specific reference. Because, like I said, with the Horde military, they have all of these watch posts here in order to keep an eye on things, make sure trouble doesn't start in the Barrens that's going to disrupt the trade, threaten their allies, threaten their home city. And so they have all these outposts that serve that purpose, various types of garrisons and such.
Okay, it's kind of like ladder. Make sure nothing goes off. You know what I'm saying? They're watching out, making sure things are cool.
Yep. And the legendary that goes with these guys, Cargill Battlescar, is a minion who, the card, he has synergy with the outposts. But in lore, in the game, he is in charge of one of the areas. He's a quest giver who is basically saying, there's some trouble. There's some Quilboar who's been threatening the settlement. They've been disrupting the caravans. I need your help to deal with them. And so he's basically one of the guys in charge. It's not a glamorous job. You're kind of, stuck out in the middle of nowhere. It's not like you're a general in Orgrimmar or something. But he takes it very seriously. He knows that, if there's a threat here that goes unchecked, it could cause a lot of trouble down the road. So he's very dedicated to his job.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You said that something about Mancrick made me think of what you just said with this guy. So he's in charge of this area with the watch posts.
He's in charge of one of the watch posts, not all of them. Everyone has their own individual.
Sorry.
But yeah, they just picked him to represent commander of watch posts in Hearthstone for this expansion.
Got it. So does he have? Sorry, Nate, get that Murgo ready. So does he have a hard on for? Does he have a hard on for Quilboar, just like Mancrick?
He doesn't have the personal vendetta that Mancrick has, but yeah, they are a huge pest as far as he's concerned. That can become a very dangerous threat, and they have to be driven back, eliminated, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, these things sound
yeah.
crazy. Okay.
Now we'll get to Quilboar in just a little bit, but they are one of the chief threats in the Barrens. Like nobody likes Quilboar.
That's funny.
Wow.
All right, so moving on to our last category of orcs here, we have a group, a specific tribe of orcs, a clan called the Burning Blade Clan. Now, this clan basically is the martial artist of the orcs. I mean, one of the characters is called Samuro. It's obviously a direct reference to samurai. So that they're very, with the blade masters, they coat their swords in these flammable pitches and stuff. And they generally wouldn't set them on fire. What they liked to do was have their amazing moves in the heat of battle with the friction light the swords on fire, so that would be completely random and unpredictable and completely throw their enemies off guard. You're fighting someone and their sword just bursts into flames. You're like, whoa, what the heck is going on? Mm-hmm. So yeah, they were like elite crack team squad units, like special forces of the Horde armies when it first got started. The way of the Blade Master was ancient before the Horde was even formed. These guys are some serious deals. Just one little problem is that when the Horde got formed, it was basically because Gul'dan was manipulating into serving the demons of the Burning Legion. And so most of them kind of drank demon blood and got completely corrupted about stuff. Yeah, that's kind of the whole origin story of the Horde. And some members embrace the corruption, others want to, make up for the crimes of when they were corrupted. But the Burning Blade Clan is kind of split down the middle on that. Samuro is a noble blade master who was on a personal quest for honor and redemption to purge the clan of its corruption, to redeem his clan, because he views that sort of thing very shamefully. On the other hand, our other legendary here, we have Niru here. He's a sneak traitor, because what he did is after Thrall became the war chief and reformed it into a non-corrupted horde. The corrupted members of the Burning Blade Clan, they like really embrace the whole serving demons type of stuff, and so they actually are enemies of the Horde. They want to re-corrupt and enslave the Horde. And Niru here is a warlock who basically tried to infiltrate Thrall's inner circle as an advisor. His whole thing is, hey, not all warlocks are bad guys. I have a lot of great information about demons that you can know. You can identify and recognize and know how to fight against the demons. It'll be great. No, I'm gonna prove to you that warlocks can totally be good guys. Just ironic because he was actually completely demon corrupted and working to try to overthrow Thrall with the other corrupted orcs of his clan, answering to a group called the Shadow Council. But the joke was actually on him because Thrall was aware that he was like the sneak double agent traitor.
The whole time he knew?
Yeah, keep your friends close in your basically what he was doing here. And so he basically players, adventurers kind of get sent to thwart his plans. But he survived because Thrall kept him around, never let him know that. And I wonder if Niru was thinking, like, why do all of my plans keep on failing? He never caught on, I guess.
Oh, that's good.
So, ironically, he died after Garrosh became the war chief, because Garrosh was obsessed with the purity of the Horde. That meant partially racial purity. He was like, orcs only here. None of you other guys. You're all lesser beings. I want a pure orc horde here. Garrosh was very racist. But he was against the demonic corruption of the Horde. He hated warlocks. And so he actually went and just if you play a raid called Siege of Orgrimmar, which is basically the point in the story where everyone is fighting back against Garrosh's tyranny and trying to overthrow him. You actually see Niru and a bunch of other warlocks. They've been hung inside a cave called the Shadow Cleft where they operated. So yeah, you literally see it. Yeah, Niru, it wasn't the adventurers thwarting his plans that killed him. It was Garrosh Hellscream who literally hung the guy as an example with a bunch of other warlocks where there's going to be no foul magic in my horde. So yeah, that's kind of metal, I guess.
Don't get caught in the wrong neighborhood. Damn.
Yeah. So that's the Burning Blade clan. But you have a few the Blade Masters like Samuro who are the noble ones trying to get rid of the corruption.
That's funny.
And that sums up all the orc categories that we're talking about here.
All right.
Now, after talking about them for a while here, we finally get to Quilboar.
All right.
What's your guys' first impression when you look at a Quilboar?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it looks like a big. I mean, like Quilboar is such a good description. It's a big warthog with like spikes all over it, right?
Yep, it's like mix a razorback hog, a warthog, and a porcupine together with a humanoid, and you basically have a Quilboar here. Like many animal races on Azeroth, anthropomorphic animal type of races, they trace their origins back to what we call one of the wild gods, kind of nature spirits who are in tune with Azeroth. Now, we don't know specifically if these races were like spawned from these wild gods or created by them or what, but they actually trace their origins back to a great boar one who died in the War of the Ancients 10,000 years ago, fighting against a demon invasion. And he had abilities where he could, like, shoot thorns out of his body.
Oh.
And yeah. And there was a big thorn theme going on there. And eventually he fell after he was killed by demons. And his body became what's called Razor Fen. Just a bunch of thorny spines grew up all around it. And that's where the Quilboar made their capital city. That's where they live. So one of those areas in the map that I mentioned at the start, Razor Fen, that is where these guys live. That's their headquarters. And it's where a lot of stuff goes on and having to fight against them.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the... They were a big threat against the Horde. Were kind of ranging from pests to major threats, depending on the day and how strong they were. But ironically, things got worse when they ended up allying with the Scourge. You remember the Scourge, right?
Oh, yes,
Undead, Lich King, all that stuff. So yeah, they ended up under the command of a lich named Aranir the Coldbringer. And there you basically have pig death knights.
Whoa.
That became the Death's Head cult. So the cards that's like Death's Head cultist, and there are other ones who are not Death Knights, and those are the ones that like the cards that say Razor Fen, this and that. So those are basically the two categories. But the Death's Head is basically the leaders here for a while. And eventually the Lich was killed. But liches don't really die unless their phylactery is destroyed. It's a container that their spirit returns to and can reform. And so after Aranar, the Coldbringer, died, there was a new leader that rose up to lead the Death's Head cultists, who is the legendary, on our next slide here, Death Speaker Blackthorne. So yeah, like super uber pig death knight.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's like that he kind of slaughtered his way up to the top of the ranks of the cult, and he heard these dark whispers inside of his head, just basically like, "You can have endless riches. You can have ultimate power. Just free me from this stupid phylactery already." Which was the Lich, of course. And so Death Speaker Blackthorne attempted to reinforce the forces at Razor Fen, and perform a ritual that'll bring the Lich back. And that's the theme of one of the dungeons at Razorfen, where as the player, you have to join the party of other players to stop him from doing that, because that's really bad.
Is that Razorfen Crawl?
Razorfen Crawl and Razorfen Down are two different sections of Razorfen. It's actually the body of the boar god who died, whose name I actually have trouble pronouncing, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so and they hold it with great reverence, and but ironically, his spirit is one of the things that helps to encourage you to stop them, because their ancestor spirit of the boar god is actually very noble, and he doesn't like what the Quilboar. Okay, eliminate these corrupt leaders, then maybe they'll finally intended them to be in the first place. But the Death's Head is basically the complete opposite of that. And our next card is one of the bosses in that dungeon, actually, the mage card, Modrish Fire Eye.
We were talking about metal, right, dude?
Yeah.
Oh, this guy's awesome.
This guy's literally themed as like a metal rock star or something for whatever reason.
I'm really curious about this. Like, yeah, does this guy play guitar on ETC's band or what? Because like I love them.
But he is that is kind of his theme in when you fight him in the dungeon. It's his boss fight is themed like that. Basically, he is insane. He was a shaman in life, and which is kind of ironic. It's a mage card, but he was originally a shaman. But fire. He's a pyromaniac, basically. Completely insane, deranged, has a corrupt and unstable connection to the elements from being raised into undeath by a Death Speaker Blackthorne, by the way. The Death Speaker Blackthorne is the one who raised this guy into undeath.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how about that?
So a very strong connection there. And so, yeah, he doesn't really have much story outside of that, but I think his whole thing about being the pyromaniac and just flinging fire everywhere as he's playing a guitar on top of his mountain of skulls. It's rather well represented in the card with just because the hero power is obviously fireball for mage by default, and so you have a ton of fire damage, and he's like, fire everywhere.
That's awesome. Okay. I love it.
Yeah.
This is the flavor is so good. This guy's so metal with all his he's got like leather and studs and the big guitar and like the guitar's kind of an axe. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's one of the really fun things about Hearthstone, and Hearthstone even more so leans into this, where it has the balance between like kind of serious fantasy elements and storylines that you kind of grab from all sorts of different cultures, mythologies, literature, and you throw it all in a blender. But they also throw in a lot of lightheartedness, silliness, and pop culture type of things as well. So it's just this great balance that they strike in this particular world that they've created in the games. So now let's move on to another race aside from the Quilboar that's a big threat to the Horde in the Barrens, the Centaur. Now, the Centaur are, well, you know what? I'll give you guys a chance to make a wild guess here. The Centaur have an interesting origin story. I'll let you give a random guess as to what you think it could possibly be.
I say, hey, the birds and the bees. I mean, there's a man and a horse were, out in the field one day, and just let you take it from there.
That's actually
I was going to say,
than
I
you
see some
might
strange
think.
things on Twitch. Yeah.
Were they stranded on a tropical island together and they just got real bored?
No, it wasn't.
Gross.
It wasn't a man and a horse. But it was a strange union. They are the bastard children between a son of Cenarius and an earth elemental princess.
Okay.
So basically, a huge lady made entire and a guy who basically just looks like Cenarius here, and they had a very unorthodox union. Normally, you don't do that sort of thing. That has a strange mix of like the aggressiveness of raw elementals, but kind of the form that you see, like Cenarius has, and like his children had, like dryads have, where you have the human form on top of a four-legged creature as the body. Like, dryads tend to look like, deer, and Cenarius has that type of look. But the Centaur are just really, really aggressive. They actually kind of ended up killing their dad by mistake, just because they're really aggressive. And they have been huge problems for the Tauren. Actually, if you may recall, if you remember to the Book of Heroes with Rexar, one of the quests is that you have to rescue Bane when he's a young child who has been kidnapped by the Centaur, who, by the way, can be cannibalistic and very likely will eat him if Rexar does not rescue him. So yeah, that they're basically competing for the same land as the Tauren, just absolute savages. Like kind of the minds, the mentalities of brutes a lot of the time. Huge problem. One of the core enemies that you'll fight aside from Quilboar in the Barrens. And our Hunter Legendary is a leader of one group of centaurs in the Barrens here. This is one of those characters. He doesn't have much individual lore. He's more like a quest objective that here's a tougher guy that you need to group up with some other players to take down. But Barat Kodobane is basically a new leader who rose up among a certain clan of centaur and organized them so that they became a bit more of a direct threat. And it's basically one of those, take out the smart leader and they'll just become disorganized and they won't be as much of a threat to the Tauren. So that's about all the lore that he has there. He really he shoots arrows, he throws nets. I'm guessing maybe the flavor could represent like a quiver full of arrows or something, but there's a very weak connection here overall. It's kind of just one of those, hey, let's show off the Centaur angle of the Barrens a bit more. And, we could have one as a legendary, and let's just give him this effect because it'll be good for the game or something.
This card is amazing in Priest. Awesome. I swear to you. In that Lyra deck I talked about earlier, Miracle Spell, discover a card in your opponent's hand. This happened to be there. I had two Bloodweavers, play a bunch of zeros, make this cost 0, play it, draw a bunch of spells. It's on Twitch. I'll find a clip later. But it sucks that that's all his lore is.
Yeah.
He just shoots arrows. Green arrow.
That's great. You know what? Since day one, when I saw this card, like I looked at it, Barack Kodobane, I was like, Barack Kodobama. I'm just saying, like it's so like,
a Kodo is a type of animal that actually is in a couple Hearthstone cards, like Stampeding Kodo and such.
Yeah.
It's kind of a rhinoceros-like animal that the Tauren domesticate, and it's their mounts, and a lot of them run wild in the Barrens. So basically, this guy gets his name because he's an accomplished hunter who has killed many Kodo. He's a centaur, big game hunter in a sense, you might say, as far as his people's concerned.
Gotcha.
That's it. That's inside his name. Yeah. So moving on, we move to a last core category of kind of the monster races that you might say that are in the Barrens, the Harpies.
Mm-hmm.
So Harpies are the corrupted descendants, children of Aviana. You guys remember Aviana, right?
Oh, how could we forget?
The music that comes down. The music of death.
My winged children fill the skies. Yeah.
Yeah. And the version of Redwood that no one ever wanted to play.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, so basically she is another one of those wild gods that I was talking about, and she's basically, in charge of winged creatures. She has that affinity, and the Harpies are like her children, her kind of the race that comes from her. But most of them are very corrupted. They are very wicked a lot. They have a lot of powerful magic, often of the elemental variety, and they're just the worst. They'll turn things to stone. They have all sorts of different ways that they can cause trouble. And there's a particular group of them called the Witchwing who are out in the Barrens right now. And the leader of that one particular group is our legendary for the priest, Serana Bloodfeather. Again, don't really have much particular lore on her per se, but she's actually the sister of the previous matron of the Harpies, of the Witchwing Harpies in the Barrens. That's the way they organize. They're all female. There's no male Harpies. And don't ask me how they reproduce.
Oh man!
Like sorry in Mass Effect or something. I don't know, but
it's going everywhere.
but yeah. So Rexar actually killed the previous matron, who is Serana's sister, and they are kind of very much out for revenge against the Horde for the death of that previous matron, who was just called Bloodfeather. And so that's kind of their little story in the Barrens, such as it is. It's like Rexar killed previous leader, and so we're out for vengeance against the Horde. They might. There's nothing in particular that about them life steal abilities like in the card, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did have powers like that. Some of them carry some things called blood shards, which some of the Quilboar also carry. It's actually one of the Quilboar cards that its blood shard is right in the name. And so that's a type of magic that maybe I can see that they might steal some life force to weaken you or empower themselves. So yeah, that's kind of the deal of the Harpies and that legendary in Forged in the Barrens.
Cool.
So now we have our rogue legendary here, Apothecary Hilbrum. Now, the Royal Apothecary Society is a group of mainly Forsaken who live in Undercity, which is the capital city of the undead, under Sylvanas until very recently. And they're basically the plague doctors. Not doctors who help to cure you from the plague, doctors who make plagues. So basically, at some point in 2020, the Royal Apothecary Society crossed dimensions into our world and just caused a whole lot of trouble. We're still feeling the ramifications of those darn Forsaken, but they aren't always bad. Many of them are very sinister and just delight in creating new diseases that will kill people, often raising them dead themselves. But they can create potions that can be beneficial. They can create poisons that, well, it's not beneficial for whoever gets stabbed or, injected with them. But for you, if you buy them to help your weapons, they're beneficial for you against your enemies.
I see.
And Apothecary Hilbrum here is a member of the Royal Apothecary Society who is in the Barrens, who is looking for some rare reagents, like various types of mushrooms and plants and such that he can use to turn into, experiment with, turn into new types of potions and poisons. And so that's kind of his role here, why he'll give you the random poisons. It's like, he's experimenting with all of the different things here in the Barrens, and, let's see what comes out. What can we use this for?
Oh, interesting. Okay. Fun. It reminds me of Mad Scientist a little bit, or we compared this card to like Zero, but like
the take.
Yeah, the card itself reminds me of Mad Scientist. Is there any sort of relationship there, or no?
Well, most Mad Scientists are they would either be a member of society, or they would be members of the Scourge and working for the Lich King to develop plagues over there. So I can't tell you for definitively which is which. There's a cards that carry that Mad Scientist theme, like there's Kooky Chemist and
Professor Futureside.
Yeah, Professor Putricide is the head for the Scourge, working under the Lich King to develop a plague of undeath that'll, destroy the world and such. But so he's not related to the Apothecary Society that this card is here.
Okay.
But yes, they're very similar.
Okay.
It's just kind of who are they working for, to
Gotcha.
put it simply.
Okay. Interesting. I like it. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And now we come to our last. So most of this has been entirely focused on the Horde here, because this is Horde territory. But the Alliance does have a foothold here called Northwatch. This is basically their fortress, where they keep an eye on things, try to make some incursions into Horde lands when there's on. And this is basically their stronghold. And so we have it's the theme for paladins here. We have characters like Northwatch Commander, and other ones that have Northwatch in there. And yeah, that's basically various soldiers and medics and defenders, basically kind of the representing the spectrum of the forces who are operating out of this particular fortress here.
So when Cannon Master Smith's the secrets turn into minions, that's their Northwatch minions. So that's what the token is from. It's pretty cool.
Right.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's the last legendary that we're talking about. Cannon Master Smith is not a character who really has story, but there is a little funny thing behind his name there, because he's also teamed up with a fellow cannoneer named Cannoneer Wesson, and they are named after Smith & Wesson Weaponry, which is a company. Blizzard likes to make a lot of pun and reference names like that, which I can't blame them when you have so many NPCs who give quests and that you need to give unique names for. Why not just look around at, the name, the products that you're using and turn them into puns? I mean, I'd probably do that if I had to name that many characters, and I love naming things.
It's so fun.
It's interesting from a legal perspective. Like, I wonder, if it's a parody, it's one thing, but it's such a throw to okay, Smith & Wesson firearms. Okay, well, they're cannoneers, so I guess it makes sense, right? That they're but it's I'd have to throw this to somebody else, but I wonder how many times I'm curious, do they reach out and say, hey, we want to name our characters after you, we'll spell it different, or
I doubt it.
It's free advertising, man.
Yeah. Hey, I do have a legit question. In the game, they're called Cannoneers. So I have Cannoneer Smith, Cannoneer Wesson, and in the card they call him Cannon Master. And so, why did they change that? Not that it matters, but I'm just
does that sometimes. I don't know. My guess is that maybe they think something's easier to pronounce or more instantly recognizable as to what it means if you're familiar with Warcraft. I can't think of any other specific examples right off the top of my head, but I know there are other examples in Hearthstone where a title is adjusted a bit or something is spelled maybe just a little bit differently. And I'm not on the team, so I can't really say why they decided to do that. But in this sense, they chose to have him Cannon Master to emphasize that he is a commander of these cannoneers here. He's not just one of the people who's firing the cannons. He's in charge of this of the defenses of the fortress.
I mean, Cannon Master's a little more legendary sounding than Cannoneer.
That's true.
Yes,
100%. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably what we're going for here. And the thing about the turning the secrets into the soldiers is likely, we've got some secret weapons or some secret hidden forces here, and that's what it's representing in the card. That's my best guess for showing how he's in the command of all of these and unleash our secret weapons. That sort of thing.
I'm almost surprised that they didn't, do something like the existing ship's cannon or something where it's firing out cannonballs. But I like the flavor here.
That would be pretty awesome.
But
I like Hydra's take.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. Dudes in the tavern. What's up, girl? Nah, I know about you cannoneers. Nah, Scotty.
I want the cannon map.
Cannon master. I like it. I like it over here. The flavor.
Oh no! The cannoneers work for me.
They can afford you to buy your drink. I can afford to buy you. Right here, next to the hearth.
Oh, that's great! Oh my god.
So yeah, that's the basic overview of the various types of cards. There's we're not touching on every single card. Some of them would have a significant, like, oh, this is a reference to that orc clan, or this troll tribe, or that particular platoon of soldiers. But we're not going to dive into all of that here. This should give everyone just enough in knowledge to have a smattering of the, like I said, the tour guide sense of the expansion. You can see, now you know what all the basic races are and kind of where everyone plays, their relations. And I hope that this inspires people to maybe want to try out some particular combinations of characters that they might not have thought of beforehand.
Love it. Hey, one quick thing. Since we have a couple extra minutes here, do you have any hot takes or predictions on what would be to come from the mini set later? Just knowing what you know about the Barrens, like the region, because like we saw with, I remember when we did lore for Darkmoon Fair, right? And we were talking about the lore, and you're like, well, there's these main characters, and there's one character that is pretty big that is like missing from this, and so what is it? The wolf, like, was it Moonfang? I think it was.
Moonfang, yep.
And so I remember very specifically you saying like they didn't add Moonfang in this, and so I wouldn't be too surprised if that one's coming in the mini set. And you called it, right? And so I wonder if there's something here that, like, okay, I heard like the spoiler thing from Hearthbone, and we don't need to go down there if I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read that article.
I have no idea.
But your own personal hot take, like, are there key characters or minions or things that are like strangely absent from this set that you think might be touched on later?
Well, yes. Actually, something related to.
Right. Sorry, you cut out for just a second there. Okay, you're back.
Sorry.
You're back. No, it's cool.
So actually, the rumor leaker actually touches on something that I would have predicted anyway. Looking back at the map here, you see there are a couple areas around the center. One of them is on the side. It's called Ratchet. That is referenced in one or two of the cards. Ratchet is sort of it's a goblin port, officially neutral. You might remember there's Ratchet Privateer, the goblin lady pirate. And so that's actually where Gazlo was. If you guys remember Gazlo from Goblins,
dude.
This is his place. This is an area that he was in charge of. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's something that might touch a bit on that. Maybe we could see a new version of Gazlo. They like to do that with a lot of characters. Like we got with Vol'jin, who was also in Goblin.
It's mostly goblins that are in Ratchet, right? If I recall correctly.
Mostly, yes. Yeah. But then the main thing that I would say probably is the thing that the leak or what have you did touch on, which is that spot right in the middle, the Wailing Cabinets. This is one of the first dungeons in the history of Warcraft. It's pretty famous because of that. It's a maze. A lot of people find their way through it. There's a lot of different bosses in there. Basically, the story behind that is that it's kind of some haunted caverns that a group of druids went into in an attempt to kind of pacify it and make it habitable and peaceful. But they fell into what's called the Emerald Nightmare, which is a corrupted version of the Emerald Dream, the Emerald Dream is basically this ethereal realm of pure nature that is connected to Azeroth that a lot of druids spend time in and draw their power from. But the old gods worked their way into it and corrupted part of it. It's called the Emerald Nightmare. And all of that kind of plays into some druids who have become trapped. Actually, we keep on going back to goblins and gnomes here. Do any of you remember a druid card that turns into a snake?
Oh, yeah.
I can't quite remember what it's called right now.
It's the... Yeah.
Fail or something? I don't know. Can't remember right now. But anyway, there's a lot like that, kind of druids who have gone crazy and they take on a snake form. Actually, the final boss...
It's Druid of the Fang.
Yeah, Druid of the Fang, that's it. So actually, the final boss of the dungeon is when you're trying to wake up the head druid to rouse him from the nightmare. You have to fight a manifestation of the dark forces of the nightmare that have formed into his greatest fear. Guess what his greatest fear is?
Oh, God. Insert Indiana Jones quote here.
Not snakes.
Oh, I was wrong. Sad.
Murloc.
He's leader. Yes, Murlocs.
Oh, how funny.
All the forms when he's this great force of darkness, manifesting into his greatest fear, you have to fight a giant
Murloc. Oh my God.
That's the final boss of the Wailing Caverns.
It's so funny. My wife just did
a megafin.
My wife just did Wailing Cabinets for the first time yesterday. First time ever. And she was getting so frustrated. It was really funny. And yeah, I had to keep helping her out with it. It was just super funny. Yes, I love that big Murloc.
Yeah, so that's something that I think, it's something that's notably absent. If you look at the map here, and like I said, Ratchet is on a little bit. It's not something super major, but I think they could potentially maybe do it a little bit with it. But Wailing Caverns is what I would think, because it's such an iconic dungeon. It's something that would probably warrant getting its own mini set focusing on it. So I think I would think that was very likely, even if we hadn't had rumors and leaks of various sorts that would hint that that's probably what we're going to get.
Did the giant?
So I would predict various bosses and characters like the druids that you're trying to assist. Probably characters from those would very likely end up as legendary minions for that set.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because we've seen them do callbacks to earlier archetypes, like this beast druid, or like druid cards with beast tags that they were pushing a long time ago, and then they stopped, and now there's a couple that are back. And so that makes sense. And then we've seen a bunch of Murloc shaman support this set as well, that if they're about to drop another Murloc legendary, like hey, I mean, the timing it would be spot on in terms of lore tie-in, right?
So, absolutely.
I like that. Okay. Hey, the things that hot takes right here. I love it. I missed it. Was the giant Murloc like raid boss? Did it have a name, or was it just a giant Murloc? Like
It does have a name. I think I can't remember.
Mutanus the Devourer.
Is it Megafin?
No, it's not. Megafin is a Hearthstone original creation from.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I believe it's Mutanus the Devourer.
Oh.
Yes, Mutanus the Devourer. And actually, if I can quickly find the description of it, I think it's slightly hubris. Let me just do a quick.
Oh, he's like all white, like a ghost or something. Like I see the picture here. I'll pull it up. Oh, let's see. Okay, wait. Sorry, you guys cut out for 2 seconds, but I found the picture here. Let me pull it up, because it's funny. Like, it doesn't look like a normal Murloc. It looks like he's all white, like a ghost or something. Here it is. Look at that. That's a creepy Murloc right there.
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah. So his
What the hell? I'd be scared too.
his description in the says, from the darkest corners of Narlix's twisted mind, the corruption plaguing the Emerald Dream has manifested in the form of the Druid's worst enemy, Murlocs. The aberration to liberate Narlex from the nightmare's clutches. Narlex is the name of the druid you're trying to wake up.
Okay.
As Ari Morn points out in chat, it looks like Pennywise the Murloc.
Yeah. Oh, and get this. It says that is also a potential memory. So you guys remember Argent Confessor Paltris from the Grand Tournament, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
I opened the golden last week.
Oh, nice.
What?
Yeah.
Nice. Oh yeah, I saw that. That is so cool.
Yeah.
So she's a dungeon boss in the fight of the Crusade, which is a dungeon, and her thing is why her card summons random legendaries is because she is summoning memories of past monstrosities that you have defeated as part of your test in the arena, and this is one of the ones that she can summon.
Oh, crazy. Okay.
Yeah, so Confessor Paltris may summon Mutanus the Devourer as in a dungeon randomly. So there's a little tidbit for you.
Love it. All right, hey, that's great, man. That's some
cool.
Good Easter eggs right there. So we'll see. I guess we'll give it another. How long was it last time between the set?
I was just about to ask you that. I can't remember.
What's it like?
November and then January something it came out. 17th.
Probably a month and a half or
January.
so. I don't like if the set's out for 4 months. It's probably halfway through or something, right?
Yeah,
2 months.
and
Yeah,
it was very quick between when they announced it was released.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's around the halfway or 2/3 points of the life of the set is probably what I'll guess. And given that they come out in quarters of the year, like the second one won't be announced until July or something and come out in August, and the third one is generally announced around November, comes out in December. So
they brought it earlier.
That's true. They haven't been contacted with that, but I would probably estimate late May or June is probably the time that we get an official announcement on this. Just eyeballing it off the top of my head here. I could be entirely wrong, except that. So don't quote me on this, but that's my estimation for when we might get more details on, if this is Wailing Caverns and what particular characters would be featured in it. And we'd probably get 4 legendaries, like in the Darkmoon races. They don't have a ton of legendaries, just a few, some neutrals, some spread out throughout the classes. So yeah, it would probably just be, and that would make sense because you're not going to turn every single boss from the dungeon into a legendary card. So they probably just take a couple of the highlights in there and make them into about 4 legendaries if they're doing it like they did Darkmoon races.
Love it. Okay. Super cool. All right, you guys. Well, we're sort of at the end of this, so I want to transition to kind of wrapping things up here. Before we close out, I do want to say a quick